Good Erev Shabbos, everyone. It's the Shabbos following Gittas Kislev and the Shabbos before Hanukkah, which is usually when Shabbos Vayeshev falls out, either on or before Hanukkah. And just an idea about this week's Parsha connected a little with current events. We always spoke about this week's Parsha that when it comes to the Parshas of the week, we know we have to find its beginning and end, and the whole story in how it begins and how it ends shows us the space in between. And the beginning of the Parsha starts off with the sons of Yaakov who, after the dreams of Yosef, they sell him, throw him in the pit, they sell him off to Egypt. And it finishes off where Yosef ends up back in the pit of the dungeons of Egypt. And he places his hope in the Sarah Mashkin, in the wine pourer. And the end of the Parsha is that Vayishkachehu, he forgets him. The Alter Rebbe talks about and connect the idea of Vayeshev means his yashvus, that Yaakov is settled. He takes the ideas that even the most abstract ideas, Be'eretz Megurei Aviv, even the place of his father, and Megurei is from the word the fearful place of his father, where the auras of Gvura, the lights of Gvura, of severity, of power, so to say, of energy, forcefulness, there can be a concern that these lights and these energies may go to the wrong places, that Yaakov is not fearful of Vayeshev. He's able to bring it, settle it, to bring it into a place and to be effective with it. Vayeshev Yaakov. And this is very much connected with the idea of Yittas Kislev, that the 19th of Kislev is that the great lights of the teachings of Chassidus, that there was a concern in heaven and below in this world, that the teachings of the Alter Rebbe, the teachings of Chassidus are too powerful, too strong, and maybe vulnerable to the masses, that we're supposed to bring it to his yashvus. We have to bring it and settle it in, because that's the only way we're going to bring Mashiach. And the Alter Rebbe continues when he talks about this week's Parsha that really this is the week of dreams. And to connect it to the idea of his yashvus, to settle it down, is the Alter Rebbe talks about Hayinu Kachomim. When Mashiach comes, we're going to realize that we live in a time where there's a lack of logic. Things don't make sense. Things don't make sense in our own life. Things don't make sense in the choices we make. There's inconsistencies in our life. Seemingly, there's one moment we're feeling high, godly, the next moment we're feeling very materialistic. And if a person has logic, the logic wouldn't allow. The chachma, if a person was awake, if we were awake, we would say, what's going on? There's an inconsistency here. But when Mashiach comes, we're going to say, but actually, the ability to survive the galus, the ability to not just to survive, but to thrive in the galus was because Hayinu Kachomim, we were like dreamers. We didn't get locked down into the logic. We went beyond the logic. And it's really, when we say Hayinu Kachomim, we talk plurally, that we were like dreamers, seemingly means we, the Jewish people. But we also means the Jewish people and Hashem himself. Even Hashem, Hayinu Kachomim, we could say that God is like a dreamer, so to say, where there's no logic. There's no logic to say that Jewish people should be 2,000 years of galus. There's no logic to say that we're still here fighting with the small candles of lightness to try to light up the darkness. So Hashem also is going to say, Hayinu Kachomim. There was no logic to all this. But nevertheless, we're supposed to take the ideas of the beyond logic and bring it Beis Yashus, bring it into the world, to use the powers of sometimes beyond the logic to make the changes the last seconds we have to go forward in the galus. And when we see the video that came out last night of those hostages that were not far from here, literally less than 100 kilometers where I'm standing right now. And it wasn't years ago. This happened less than 2 years ago. That they were in the darkest places in the world. In the Egypt, like Yosef was in the pit. They were in the pit and they sat there, and what does the video show? That they're lighting the Hanukkah candles. The Hanukkah candles always represented for the Jewish people the hope, the light in the darkness. There's a hope, there's a future. That although, unfortunately, these hostages did not come out of the pit alive, these hostages were brutally murdered by Hamas in cold blood. But we say Hayinu Kachomim, we don't understand. There's no logic to this. We don't understand everything. But what we do see is that in this crazy world, what were they doing? They were lighting the menorah. This week's Parsha ends off, Vayishkachehu, that Yosef felt forgotten. We're not forgotten, because right away next week starts Vahi Miketz Shnosayim Shana, 2 years later, starts the Geula, starts the redemption, starts a total transformation. And may it be Taka, that B'schus, these great tzaddikim and tzidkanios, who sat there in the darkest places of the world today, lighting the Hanukkah menorah, that light should continue and does continue till the light to the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mheir b'meinu mamash. Good Shabbos.